Good morning, sawadee-ka, ohayo gozaimasu. My name is Mihoko Chida. I am the 3-4 cohort leader here at VERSO International School in Bangkok, Thailand. My name is Mihoko Chida, like I've mentioned. I'm originally from Southern California. My parents still live there. I started my teaching career there and I worked in California for 8 years before I moved overseas. I moved here in August last year in 2019 to Bangkok from Tokyo, where I worked there for 8 years. I come from a bicultural background. My parents are Japanese, but I was completely raised in the United States. So I really have that background of understanding what it's like to grow up biculturally. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. This is our third VERSO Q&A. We're really excited. It's been really cool, great to connect with people and find out what people want to know. So we love questions here. One of the mindsets that we value is having curiosity. So ask questions. Ask the questions in the chat. If I don't get to answering them here in the live, we have a team of people here who will answer those questions online for you, or we'll follow up personally. We do have this Facebook Live every Thursday at 9:30 Bangkok time, and we're here to have different learning designers come and answer any of the questions that you might have. I will speak in general terms, talking about all grade levels, but if you want to know specifically about your child, reach out to us. We have exclusive Q&As with different learning designers. You can find those details on Facebook. You can also connect with us by emailing us at the admissions@verso.school. You can also reach out and do the private tour with our head of school every Tuesday. And again, you can reach out and find those details on Facebook. But if you really want to, today I'll answer all the questions that you have, but we really want to make sure that you have lots of questions and we answer all the questions that you might have. I wanted to start today because I know that we're all in a different situation, and we as learning design team have been working from home. That's been quite the experience. We want to make sure that we are staying safe and that we're keeping others safe, and that's very important to us to give back to the community in that way, and we've been really being supported by each other and really drawing on our professional community in order to do so. But I wanted to start with some tips because I know that many of you are at home working with your children with their online learning or their remote learning. We're super aware here that this model has put a lot of pressure on families and parents as well, because I know that many of you are also working from home. And I know there's a lot of different tips out there. There's a lot of articles. And so if you have any tips, feel free to share them in the chat as well, because I hope that this is also a community that we can all share our ideas. But one tip that I really wanted to talk about today was coaching students in all the situations that they're in, or coaching your children. I read an article that said that students who are incoming to Harvard University, they found that a lot of them didn't have those life skills that we kind of maybe learned from our parents: cooking, following a recipe, doing laundry, those kinds of things. And it's funny to think about. You have all these kids who were very successful academically, who were able to get into Harvard, and they can't do those simple tasks. So I hope that this is an opportunity for families at home, as you're spending more time at home, to take those times to do things together, fixing things around the house, cooking together, trying new recipes. And that changes throughout, that'll look differently based on the age of your children. So, those are communication skills, those are creativity skills, those are fostering resilience. Think about the mental wellness skills that you're fostering as you're working and talking through and processing all the feelings that we're feeling there's a lot of unknowns in our world right now. So, cooking could be, for young kids, something as simple as, counting things to put into the dish. For older or middle school or elementary students, it might be measuring dishes, adjusting quantities. For older kids, you might talk about the ethical implications of things in your dish, trying vegan dishes, trying dishes from other cultures. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and I hope that you're taking this time to make sure that our kids that will be going on to university after this will have those life skills and be able to have learned them from you. So I wanted to start off by talking about the curriculum a little bit. one of the questions that we get is like, what's your curriculum? And it's really hard as an educator to sum up curriculum in just a short sentence. Curriculum is made up of a lot of things, as we know. But one of the things that we've talked about is we are drawing from the American standards, but that's not driving all of our decisions. You know, what drives our decisions on what we decide to, the learning experiences that we design for your students and with your students, that could be from, you know, things that are in here in Bangkok. We want to make sure that we are an international school that's aware of the context of where we're in. You know, as an international educator, I know there's a lot of people out there, and we're always thinking about like this, you know, we want to be aware and responsive to the world that's right outside our doors. We don't want to be the international school bubble that you hear so much about. So that's our curriculum. I kind of wanted to talk, before I go into the different parts of curriculum, I really wanted to talk to you and share with you about the elements of our day. So, and just as a reminder, while I'm talking, make sure you're putting those questions in, because I have some people on the team who are watching those questions, and we'll make sure we get to them by the end of this. So I feel like I'm in a cooking show, because I'm about to show you what the elements of the day are. So first, we always start our day, we will start our day with community time. And again, I'm talking about general, so if you want to know specifics about your child or your child's grade level, reach out to us and we can answer those questions and connect you with the person who would have the most information. So we'll start the day with community time. There's a little icon on here that's a pit stop. Imagine community time is a time where we all come together and we're like, okay, what's the plan for the day? What are the goals? Whether they're individual goals or goals for the whole group, that's our time to sort of check in with everybody, check in with people's wellness, like how was your sleep last night? How are you feeling? What do you plan to get through the day? And so that's our community time, and that will be in small groups and led by a learning designer. You might be thinking, what's a learning designer? I keep talking about learning designers. A learning designer is what you might know as a teacher. So there are lots of different types of teachers out there and educators out there. And a lot of schools, or at some schools, it may require the teacher to take a program that's already planned, or a textbook, or scope and sequence, and go through that with your child and make adjustments to where your child needs to be or what they need to be doing. But here we call our educators learning designers, because they will be designing learning with each other, with you, with them, and we'll be co-creating that experience together. So that happens in community time, where again, it's a reminder, the time where people are coming together and checking on goals for the day and setting intentions for the day. Next will come Learning Lab. So in Learning Lab, they this is a time where this is designed by learning designers. So one thing that you might think about is this is what like a school maybe might look like in your child's school now. So this is designed by the learning designers. They decide, they listen to what the kids have been interested in, what questions they might have, or what skills they might need to work on. And then we do the designing for them. Of course, we're still aware of the context. We're still drawing upon our local community and our global community. But this is designed by a team of learning designers. So you might not have one teacher designing the experience for the whole class. You might have a group of learning designers who have different experiences and different areas of expertise, and they will design the learning lab. Then you have the explore time. Now what's different about VERSO, and might be different from your experiences in school so far, is a lot of times Learning Lab is the majority of the day, and kids have a little bit of time to explore. So you might call it Genius Hour or project-based learning time. So at VERSO, we'll have a lot of time for your children to explore different projects and different interests, and maybe not even just the things they're interested in, maybe some of the things that they think they don't like. We might challenge them to try different activities there and study different things. So this might look like, for one student, they're looking and exploring how to compose music and to do an audio recording. Some people might be looking at recording a podcast, or writing a book, whatever it is. So the next thing during explore time, I'm going to move these back just a little bit, so I'm making sure you guys can all see them. So during this explore time, now you might think, okay, this is very free time. How we add structure to the Explore is we have something that we call workshops. Now in workshops, it's a little toolbox, and so in the toolbox, we're talking about like giving kids the skills, the different tools to reskill and upskill them so that they can do the different activities that they're doing in their Explore time. So that student that was learning to write a book or wanting to write a book, and that student that was wanting to put out a podcast, they may go to a workshop that's based on how to record, how to edit audio, or maybe they're learning how to create a book on using their iPad, or how to edit photos. So that's the workshop, and that workshop might be one time, it might be a series, and it depends on what the workshop topic is. I think, editing audio to learn how to do that, it takes more than one workshop. And I know that many of you who do that would know that. The other one, the last element, is called Converso. Now, I always chuckle when I hear the word Converso because it's a play on our school name, and I think that's very clever. It wasn't my idea. But I think it's hilarious. So conversos are those one-on-one conversations with each child, with the learning designer, to sort of coach them, push them to do something a little bit different. So that child who's wanting to write that book, maybe the converso, the learning designer talks to them and says, hey, what's a way that authors get their books sort of out into the public? And have you noticed that some books are translated into different languages? That might be an opportunity for that learning designer to coach that child to think about writing their story in English and then translating it to another language, or working with another person to translate that. So that's something that we do in our conversos. It's all about sort of adding the structure to the Explore so that the learning is ongoing and that the curriculum the curricular needs and those skills that we know kids need are being met and addressed. So we have some questions already. We have a question about from Thomas about how field trips and experiences that might take place. Now, it's hard to imagine field trips and experiences right now because we're in a situation where things are changing all the time. But with all decisions, we're really agile. We try to be adaptive to the situation. So safety, things like that are always going to be on the forefront of our minds as we plan experiences for people. What's important to us is that, so many times schools, we do this. We say, okay, we're going to learn about something, but we're going to learn about it here in the classroom. And it doesn't make any sense because the skills are being used or those experiences are outside of the classroom. So at VERSO, we like to take learning beyond the walls. Let's break down these arbitrary walls they're real walls, but let's take those walls down and have kids experience learning outside. How are we supposed to get our kids to learn about how plants grow if we're learning about them in a classroom in a pot? How can we get them outside and doing different things? And this also connects to another important concept of ours, which is NAMJIVE, giving and connecting back to our community, reciprocity, learning from and learning with one another. So the field trips and experiences, we really intend to use all the opportunities here we have in Bangkok, in our local community, and this is where we'll probably ask a lot of parents for their support in the sense of, we have a lot of learning designers here like myself who are new to Thailand, so you might know of experiences that we don't know about. So we really hope that we can keep those connections and draw on those connections. Just wanted to I know some people have joined the live in midstream and you're probably wondering who I am. My name is Mihoko Chida. I'm the 3-4 cohort leader here at VERSO International School, and I'm here answering any questions that you might have about the school. And so please just keep those questions going. Back on the field trips and experiences, the other thing we want to do is make sure we're bringing learning experiences and experts into the school as well. So we might not just be going out to the field and outside world. We might be bringing the outside world in. So that's something to remember as well. And the other is our campus has so many opportunities for learning outside here without even leaving our walls. We have a lake, we have a garden, we have all these things here that we could be learning a lot here, and those experiences can be done just within our VERSO gates. So I have another question here from Dominic about any role models to talk about. So Thinking that might be questions, role models, people we're watching to learn more about how to design things going on in VERSO. We collectively, the learning designers here, are pretty connected to, we're always keen to learn from others. So we're definitely drawing on people in the education space, people we know as educators, we've heard their names over and over again, like Joe Baller and people like that. But the other things, other people we're connecting with and learning from are people, role models, are people who are looking at the future space. You know, how is the world changing? How is the world, and this is a great example because the world has changed quite dramatically in the last few months. But we want our kids to be resilient and be able to respond to that. In order for us to do that, we as a school need to be responsive and be able to respond to those changes. So we are looking at different role models in different spaces. One of the things that we like to look at is what are the successful people in the world, whatever area they're successful in, what are they saying are the skills they need that you need? And often they don't say they need to know how to divide fractions. They say they need to be able to communicate. They need to be able to work with others. They need to be able to persevere when times get tough. They need to be able to direct themselves through different projects. So those are the things that, those are the role models that we're looking at. Paul O'Neill asks, when we are working with our when we're working with our children at the moment, what kinds of things that can we do to be somewhat connected to the learning that might have been happening in school? Do we need to keep up or just engage them in some form of thinking and communicating? This is a great question. Basically, to summarize that question, the question is asking, do we need to keep up with everything schools have been doing in the past, or what might typically happen? No. This is a different situation. The world has changed, and we need to recognize that. One of the advice that I have for parents is listen to how your kids are feeling. Connect with those thinking skills, connect with those emotional things that they're going through, because that is a lesson on regulating feelings, checking in with themselves. We like to call, it's something is, and I've heard this being said over and over in the professional realm and Twitter and things like that, is we have to say what is most important for our kids to be learning right now. Yes, if they were currently in the model of school that we were used to working in, they would be working on their fractions unit or their geometry unit. Things have changed. So we need to change along with that. So communication, mental health skills, those are all very important. I wanted to take a minute right now to just talk about our remote learning, or what would remote learning look like here at VERSO. I'm purposely using the term remote learning because a lot of people have used online learning, and I don't think that quite captures what we want to do here at VERSO. It's important. Well-being is very important to us, and to us, learning isn't about sitting in front of a screen, taking in information, regurgitating that information, and sending it and submitting it to your teachers. That's just never the way we've looked at learning to begin with. So why would we do that if we had to go for a remote learning model or a distance model? So we want to be aware of the screen time. We are hyper aware of the impact that screen time has on your children. We might have different ways. I want to call it like a balance or a blend of digital and analog, the opportunities to get your kids to get their hands dirty and do different things and different experiences with digital support. So that's going to look different for every grade level, and we recognize that. We also understand that that's going to look different based on your children's, your home situation. Some parents are working from home. Some parents have education backgrounds. So we want to work with families to make sure that we're meeting the needs for your family. I keep saying that it's a partnership, and we're not just saying that, we really mean it. We'll be really clear with our instructions and what needs to be happening with your children. I kind of look at our 4 mindsets. So one of our mindsets is that we're driven by curiosity. So those learning experiences will be designed that way. Another mindset is we want kids to be connected. our learning experiences will be designed that way, so that they're not only connecting with you as a family, they're connecting with us as learning designers, but they're also connecting with each other in their community, in their age group, and they're also connecting with people in the outside world. We also, another mindset is opportunities to contribute. So what that means is to give back to either their family community, their local community, or even their classroom community. And the last one is a really important one for this time right now, which is being resilient, being equipped to transition. That means that they're comfortable with change. Things changed in the world around them, and they know how they are equipped with the skills to be able to transition to the new context. And that's what we will be designing all of our learning experiences that are remote. Those are still going to be the same things that we think about when we design learning experiences for them. And the learning designers will be there to support in all aspects. We will be there, and it won't be just one learning designer. We'll have a team of learning designers supporting your kids. And again, we're super aware of the impact and the demands that this all has on families, learning from home has on families. So I have another question here from Richard Haynes, and one of our people that we follow and we look to for guidance and advice on how the world is changing. The question is, how will you balance the core impulse of creativity and collective imagination with the need to comply with a relatively conservative educational establishment? So how do we balance this idea of the freedom to be creative and to have collective imagination, and how do we sort of reconcile that with the conservative educational establishments and also the expectations that we've had so far in life with our own experiences with education? I think the big answer to that is we're consistently challenging ourselves as learning designers. We all come from a lot of experiences in schools, both as educators and as students. And while that's great in the sense that we have a lot of skills that we've learned along our journeys, it sort of sometimes traps us in like the thinking of that's the way it used to happen and this is the way schools should be because we've always had that. So I think what we're doing is we're constantly challenging ourselves with our VERSO DNA. What's our purpose here? And if we're trying to design a learning program for kids who are creative and curious about the world around them, who are inspired to connect, and all those 4 skills that I just talked about, we really need to be changing the way we do school. And so we are balancing those things by looking at what's important from the previous establishments of school and why do we keep doing that, really questioning why do we always start school at the same time, why did we always have bells, why did we have set periods of when learning should begin and end, and really questioning those elements and looking at, okay, what is the world the kids are going, what skills will students or children need for their future? I have another question from Meredith Lawson. Just a full disclosure, I know this person, I used to work with her, so hopefully she's asked me a good question, easy question. Nope. The question she's asked is, have you had to make any major adjustments to your planning or learning considering the current pandemic? Good question, Meredith. I thought you'd give me an easy question, but one of the things that we keep talking about is we have designed these elements of the day way before this pandemic started. And you can see how these elements would still work in any context. So community time. Yeah, we might not be sitting in the same room together, and we might have masks and we might check temperatures before you come to the classroom, but community time can still happen. If we have to, it can also happen online in a Zoom meeting or a group chat. So those things that we've already designed are already designed from before the pandemic happened. The other thing is I was talking to our head of school yesterday, and just to plug, he's doing a tour. He does tours every Tuesday, so sign up to do tours with him. We were talking about how one of the things that make us best equipped to deal with some of the challenges that have come up from the pandemic is that we have always said we are going to adapt and be agile. We are a school that's going to develop with the changes in the context around us. So we were already positioned to be moving and changing as the world changed. And it changed very quickly, and we are already looking at ways that we can make those changes for our students when they come and join us August 2020. Just a quick, and the other thing to think about is that we have a great teacher and student ratio. Here at in the 3-4 cohort, the ratio is 1 to 16, and that's just the official number. That 1 to 16 doesn't include the 14 to 18 different learning designers who work across the whole school. So they might be design teachers, they might be athletic teachers, so learning designers. So you will have a lot of one-on-one and close instruction with your child. We will have a lot of personalized instruction. We have another question from Tim. In your experience, are there any difficulties in teaching a class of children where there are different native languages being spoken at home? This is a great question. One of the things I've always said is anytime you get two kids together, they're totally different. They may have the same background, they may have the same, be at the same age level, but they're totally different. So we as educators are really committed to making sure we're meeting the needs for all students. Now, with language, we want to work with you to develop a language plan to make sure that we are all on the same page with regards to what you are looking for your child's language development to look like, but also theirs. Do they want to learn the language that they're learning? How motivated are they? What interests them? And so if we have kids who have different native languages, there's a lot of ways that we can make sure that we're meeting the needs in all areas, especially with young students, but all throughout. Building communication skills or language skills in one language is not isolate from what they would learn in English. So whatever they learn in their native language can connect to what they're learning in English or other languages. So looking at the connections between languages will be very important to us. So another question, is Explore Time also connected to the intended learning program, or is it just a time when kids get to go on in their own direction? Yeah, they get to do whatever they want. No. The Explore Time is designed for kids to learn and to explore in their own space. But one of the things that, it is a part of our learning program, because you hear about, and I know you all know students that are like this, or children that are like this. You ask them, like, they play the guitar, and you ask them, where'd you learn how to play the guitar? And they're like, oh yeah, I taught myself, I found a video on YouTube. Or they can do all this coding, they know all these coding languages. Where'd you learn that? Oh, I taught myself, I joined an online community and I taught myself. Well, why are we doing that at home after they finish their schoolwork and after they finished all their other activities? Why are we doing that? We want to bring that kind of learning here into the school. But using the Converso and having students work with their learning designers and using the workshop structure, we can get them to expand on their learning. So while that child may have just learned how to play the guitar if they were just on their own, by working with us through Conversos and the workshops, they may start to think about, oh, I could collaborate with another student to create a band, or hey, I might write a song to send a message to people about reducing the amount of waste they use. Or they might say, you know what, I might record this and try to become famous on TikTok or something. So we are trying to use those different skills and those interests to sort of connect to the other learning that they could be doing. In addition, there's things like another element of our school is called Showtime, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's an opportunity for kids to share with the real audience. How many times have you written something for school, or your kids have written a story for school, and the only people who read it are the teacher and maybe the kids in the class, and if you're lucky, other kids in the school. Books, stories, who is the intended audience? The intended audience is kids, whoever they designed it to be. So Showtime will be an opportunity for us to get kids connected to an authentic audience, get feedback from who they should be getting feedback from, what it looks like in the real world. Lots of authors write books and maybe nobody reads them, but a lot of authors write books and they seek out lots of ways that they can get their books across to multiple people. So that's the kind of things that we'll be doing. Another element of our school is called ALX, Applied Learning Experiences. So if, like I mentioned before, if the child is interested in writing a book, why are they learning from the only person they're learning about how to write a book is from the teacher? That happens in a lot of schools. A lot of schools I've worked at, I've been the only person to teach them how to write a book. This is something that we want to make sure that we limit in our school here at VERSO, get kids talking to people who are really in that field. And listen, everyone out there who is an expert in their field, they want to talk to kids who are interested in that field. They never say, anytime I've reached out to someone and said, hey, I got this kid and he's really interested in electricity and you're an electrician, would you be willing to talk to the student about the skills they need to have? Most times they're like, sure, I'm willing to do that because they're passionate about that topic. And so we want to connect with those people who are passionate about that topic, to connect with our students who are passionate about that topic. Just a reminder, if you have questions and you're not sure we'll get to them, keep adding them into the chat box, because I have people here behind the scenes who could either answer that question directly or answer that question in the chat box. So I have a question that says, are there any reward systems for kids? So I'm going to imagine that means about behavior. You know, how do we motivate kids to behave or act properly? Like I've said before, that one of our safety is a major issue, or it's always going to be make sure that it's a priority for us to keep your kids safe. So of course we will be talking to kids about safe behaviors in and outside of the classroom. Appropriately as they come up in the context. You know, I think sometimes, I don't know if you've ever been to somewhere where you sit down and the first thing they talk to you about is all the rules, and you're like, I don't even know anything about the situation. How am I supposed to imagine what the rules are and are not? So definitely we talk about appropriate behaviors and good choices in the context. As for rewards, I think our philosophy has never been sort of a carrots and sticks method. You know, what I mean by that is carrots as in incentives and sticks as in punishments or consequences for different choices people make. I think that kind of learning, while I myself have experienced it as a student and I've seen it as an educator, that's not intrinsic. That doesn't shape intrinsic motivation. It doesn't shape what motivates kids inside. What it does is it makes kids more aware of the outside rewards and consequences. And we're about changing kids or talking to kids for lifetime skills, not just for success in one classroom or one context. I have another question. To what extent will you encourage students to contribute to the governance of the school, particularly in terms of ethics, discipline, sanctions, etc.? So the question is, will kids have a voice? Of course. You know, we've been talking a lot about different policies and decisions we want to make, and we keep saying, well, we don't really know because kids aren't here yet, and there are going to be things that they care about. There are things that have come up in looking at the school, and we've looked at the design, and as learning designers, as adults, we've said, I don't know about this. We know our kids will also pick up on those as well. Kids are so good at picking up contradictions. You know, people with kids out there, or people with experience with kids, kids will say, like, but you said this, but you're doing this. We are hoping those kids pick up on that. And we want to teach kids to become advocates for not just themselves or, for what they think is right, but for what's best for the community as well. So I imagine some of the skills, the communication skills we might be teaching, through that, it would be persuasive writing, persuasive speaking skills, how to disagree respectfully, how to plan with someone, how to get a meeting with the head of school, how to make sure that you are getting the people who make the decisions, how to understand who is the decision-making entity in a situation, and who would have the most power in changing those policies or those rules. So I think it sounds to me like I think we're coming to the end of our time here. Again, if you are getting to the point where your question hasn't been answered, we will follow up with you. Couple of reminders, we have a Facebook Live every Thursday, 9:30 Bangkok time. I see that some people have joined from different time zones. We encourage that. Next week we'll have a learning designer. My colleague Moy will be here answering any of your questions, so send those questions in. You can also send them beforehand so we can make sure that we get to them. That'll be on May 7th. She'll be talking about approaches to learning, but I imagine if you have any other questions, she'll also be able to answer those as well. We've been working on the team together. I'm quite confident you can throw some hard questions at her and she'll be able to answer them. We also have private tours every Tuesday with our head of school. In order to sign up for those, please contact admissions@verso.school. That's actually the email, the go-to email for everything. admissions@verso.school. They can answer your questions about tuition. They can answer your schools about an interview, a tour. They can connect with one of us if you have specific questions about your child's grade level or specific questions about your family. We recognize families are different. We recognize that you have different questions based on that, and so we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. We also are on many platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Connect with us. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us during our Facebook Live today, and we hope to see you next week. So thank you very much. コップンカ、ありがとうございました。